Hi, welcome to Nurse Talk with Cor and Laur. I'm Karina.
And I'm Laura. This is week 6 on information literacy.
Part of what we're doing this week is looking at a document from the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner.
In Ontario, the Personal Health Information Protection Act governs the collection, use, and disclosure of personal health and information. So some of the definitions that we'll need to know when reviewing the document is the custodian. The custodian is an individual who's involved in the delivery of the healthcare services. It's anyone who provides care, such as the nurse. And another definition is the agent of the custodian, and this can be thought of as someone like a ward clerk who is dealing with health information but is not directly utilizing it.
The article discusses assumed applied consent, and there are examples we could use from our own workplace of what that is.
One thing I can think of is when we're heading towards a patient's room with a vitals machine and they lift their arm up for a blood pressure. That would be assumed implied that they're going to allow me to do a blood pressure. In this document, one of the things they emphasize is that when we are collecting information that we're only using it for their healthcare purposes and not using it for other reasons such as research, marketing, or fundraising.
So this assumed implied consent can exist in several areas, not just nursing or at the hospital where we are. What are some other examples, do you think?
I think testing of specimens.
Okay, so down in the lab.
Down in the lab, you're implying that you can test something if you've sent it down.
And it's been provided, yeah.
Pharmacies, if you're taking in medication, I guess.
Yeah.
Ambulances, long-term care homes, and with CCAC as well.
I guess in any situation really where someone is undergoing treatment and they are in a facility for the purposes of receiving care, it seems that it's generally exists in those scenarios. The second part of the discussion this week is actually quite interesting.
Yes.
So it was with regards to people discussing health issues on the internet.
So for this part of the discussion this week, there were some examples of websites that we could look into and see some of the things that people have requested additional information on their personal health. So I clicked on one of the websites that was about self-diagnosing, and some of the examples were if people had various rashes or bumps or things that on their body that they didn't think were normal, that they would reach out to this Read It community and ask for advice.
It was interesting to see what some people would post on the internet and what kind of issues they were discussing with these strangers, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're providing very detailed information about what was going on with them, providing pictures as well. Just interesting that a lot of the things seem that it's something quite private and personal that you want to discuss maybe with your doctor versus, a community on the internet.
Yeah.
But
a lot of the conversations would start out that they were too embarrassed to go to the doctor, but I would almost find it more embarrassing to share something like that on the internet in some situations. And it didn't really seem that anyone ever asked if anybody had medical background or anything like that. They didn't really seem to care.
So, obviously this works for some people, but I think there are some downfalls to using this as your method of finding out your information, such as maybe receiving information or feedback that isn't accurate, or opting to not receive treatment when maybe you should, because you think something is less severe than it is, or you're really just not receiving proper information about it.
I agree. I think it's concerning that some of the posts would go on for so long and it seemed like nobody actually sought out medical attention. Some of the examples of they didn't have very many comments, but people would say they were having like shortness of breath and pain and things like that.
Medical emergencies.
Yeah. And to think that they would spend the time to put it on the internet opposed to going to a hospital or their family physician is quite frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on one hand, I mean, maybe people are doing this because they want to save time. They don't want to spend the time going to a facility, but I don't really think if it's something really severe, it's not, they're not really any further ahead doing it this way. And they are still taking the time to go on there and then follow these posts, wait for responses, that kind of thing, so.
And that could lead to, like, poor treatment choices or, like, home remedies that could maybe even make something worse. Yeah. Another option might have been to call telehealth if they weren't interested in going to the doctor.
Yeah.
Because
that's pretty convenient too.
Yeah. Okay.
So Laura, just for interest's sake, what would you say to me if I was a friend, you know, I wasn't a nurse or anything like that, and I had told you that, you know, I was using the internet to find all my health information, and, you know, I was having a certain issue, and this is what I've learned from the internet, and this is what I think I should do next. And if it seemed way off mark from like what you knew, what do you think you would tell me or somebody like that?
It's a tricky situation, especially being a nurse. A lot of people think you know all the answers, kind of a thing. They always come to you, what do you think about this? Usually my go-to is, have you spoken to your family doctor about it? Because I would hate to give someone the wrong information, even if I know a little bit about it. I would, if I could share any information, I'd try to recall a reputable site that I've learned something from, or a textbook or something like that. However, I would never want somebody to quote something I said,
fair enough,
especially if I could be wrong. So everyone's different. I would say to make an appointment with the doctor, they'd be more appropriate to ask.
Yeah, I think that I feel the same way. I'd probably do that as well.
Yeah.
But so I guess that's all we need to discuss this week. We hope you enjoyed our discussion.
And we'll see you again next week. Or have a good reading week. Okay.
Oh, yeah.